What if your entire life was built on a lie? What if the world you lived in, the society you served, was a carefully engineered cage? Today we're diving into the dark world of Red Rising by Pierce Brown, the explosive first book in the saga that blends that ancient Roman grit with futuristic sci-fi rebellion. You're watching GraysonDel, where we explore books, games, and stories that leave a mark. If you enjoy content like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Let's get into it. I'll be honest with you guys, this was the first time that I went through a book where I was genuinely interested in it. So I ended up buying the book because I'm a firm believer that if you listen to an audiobook, you can get away with a really good excuse of saying that you've read the book. And I ended up reading the dramatized version of this book while I was driving to and from work every day. And I mean, this is a really interesting book. It has a twist on it where, you know, it's like I almost felt the emotional weight of the main character. His name is Darrow. I'm not going to give away too much in regards to spoilers because I do want to kind of separate that from the main content on the book. So this is the main cover of the book. One little sneaky thing that I really enjoy is that if you look right here at the top, this is the sigil. I just want to make sure I get that in the camera for you guys. That's the sigil of the Reds. So this is like the story of Darrow. And it is kind of interesting because when you first get into the book, it kind of shows like an established world, and it's going into a different. So one thing I've noticed is that many books will normally, like for example Game of Thrones, when I was doing the audiobook for that one, they kind of go into it where they're kind of telling the story from a future standpoint, so they're like talking about what happens. But this book takes a very interesting approach where it's like in the moment. So like everything that's happening, it's not like you have to interpret or you're hearing it as if it's past tense. The book is approaching things like you are reading it and learning as the main character is learning at the same time, which is a really, I'm not familiar with books like that. I'm not, like I said, I can't claim to be an expert of anything. I'm kind of you'll notice that the channel's all over the place in regards to the content, but this is the first book I've read in a long time that I really enjoyed. So I do want to just preference by saying that this is a really good story. And then when you look at the reviews here, this is kind of the vibes I was getting from the book as well. So they're listing it in the back of the book here, and these are the reviews by like New York Times and other people. A story of vengeance, warfare, and the quest for power, reminiscent of Hunger Games and Game of Thrones. And I really do get that feeling. That is probably the best way to explain this book. It's a sad book, I'll be honest with you. This is probably, in the dramatized version, it really does bring a tear to my eye. I think at one point I did kind of get a little emotional, and it was kind of sad, and it really did. It hit a spot for me. I know that it might be a little soft for some people, but topics are not light-weighted, if that makes sense. So like, it's very mature themes, even though it does feel like it's like a kid telling the story. So it's tough because I'll tell you, at the age of 16, which is kind of when this book starts, I could not imagine bullshit that the main character has gone through, and the type of world that we're in, because it feels like it's ancient, but then at the same time it's kind of diving into very futuristic themes. So it was kind of hard for me to interpret what is happening, and I mean, like, I'll tell you, the dramatized version does a really good job of explaining it, but I just couldn't visualize it in my head without thinking Cyberpunk 2077, or going back in time and thinking, okay, so I could see like kind of like a dystopian future. So like it was very interesting. They do a good job of explaining like the difference of like each class, because this is a definite class-based system. So there is, you know, for example, Reds are considered the bottom of the totem pole, and then it goes up the ranks. So you have like the Blues are considered like technology wizards or navigators, or just computers. Like mentally they are computers. And you have Greens are going to be, in this world, they're like the doctors. Now I'm not sure if when they mention somebody is a green, or, you know, when they mention that somebody is a red, if the color of their skin reflects that, or if it's something with their hair. Every reference photo, which I'll put up right here, and you should see a picture of Darrow. This is like the interpretation of the before and after that I found online. It's kind of always been a little obscured, so I guess like the way we're learning it is by like the color of their hair. At least that's what I'm able to interpret. And to be honest with you, I thought this was a phenomenal book. So I do want to preference by saying that the book was definitely a good book. A lot of people might be a little bit more harsh on it, especially if you're like more of a book critic, but I'll say that a lot of the plots in this, in a dramatized version, definitely hit very well, and I was definitely in the book, and it kept me locked in. The second book in this series, I'm already halfway through it right now, and I'll tell you, the second book, which is The Golden Sun, is ridiculous. This one is all about bronze and just being a badass and kind of like doing some pretty crazy shit, and then The Golden Sun kind of takes it back, and it's going more down the mental, which it starts to like become more of a interesting development for me, because I'm always so thrown off. Because I'll be honest with you, this book also has a few moments where the main character is doing something or has planned something, and you as the reader don't know what's happening, so you're kind of left in the dark until it's important that you know, which gives you that oh shit moment. And there's definitely a few oh shit moments in this book where I was just like, when did they have time to plan this? And like, you know, how did they get away with the planning? So I'm kind of curious, like, and I'm sure when you read the book, if you read the book, you'll understand exactly what I'm getting at, because there's moments where I'm just scratching my head and I'm just like, how? So yeah, I just gave you my thoughts on this. There's definitely some character deaths and that are very impactful, and then you kind of, I hate to say it, but sometimes you see it coming, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where you could argue cliche, but I will definitely say that this is a solid 8 out of 10. I feel like The Hunger Games is probably closer to this, and I would say that this is definitely a good book for teenagers or young adult. I couldn't imagine somebody who's much older liking this, unless you're definitely into sci-fi, like dystopian worlds. So this definitely has that dystopian vibe. Red Rising is a great book. Like I said, 8.5 where I'm sitting with this one. So highly recommend it. I think there's like 7 books, or I think there's 7 books in the saga, and probably more coming. I'm not entirely sure. And I just wanted to put a video out there, so this is just something real quick. I love the book. I think if anyone was to listen to the dramatized version on Spotify or Audible, I guarantee you won't hate it. It's a 2-part series, part 1, part 2. Part 1 is definitely going to be slower for the start because it's setting up the world for you. But when you get to part 2, there's a lot of really interesting turns and dives, and I really enjoyed the book. And if you don't enjoy the book, that's completely okay. I don't want you guys to feel forced based on my opinion, but I'll tell you that this book tackles some very serious themes about betrayal, about friendship, about alliance, like, you know, the trust in your heart and whether you can trust people. And the main character's definitely been very guarded in this book, and he doesn't want to talk about where he's from or who he is, because he doesn't want to be judged. And obviously, because he is a low red, he's in a competition with golds. It's one of those things where if he got caught, it could be the end of his ruse or his rebellion, because what he's doing is executable, or it can get him killed. But I'll be honest with you, the whole institute, or the whole purpose of the institute, was just to kill off a shit ton of people anyway. And there are some really interesting battle strategies, and you know, the book is also going to tackle is a really sad thing in this book, and how to dish out the punishment for that. So yeah, sexual assault, and it has very serious and mature themes. So I definitely think it's a good book. Thank you so much. And if you enjoyed what you've seen, please do leave a like, comment, subscribe, and don't be afraid to hit the notification bell. I know this is a book review, this isn't normal for me, but if you enjoyed everything that you've seen, thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.